The Air Force One is the best-selling sneaker of all time. Hundreds of millions, billions of pairs probably since 1982. Rappers wear it. Basketball players wear it. Your dad wears it. The kids at the mall wear it. Your random uncle that you see every 15 years is in a pair right now. So it's the most culturally dominant shoe ever made. And Nike just rebuilt the Air Force One from the ground up, allegedly, for skateboarding. A full redesign, in quotation marks, of the most iconic silhouette in footwear history. And here's the problem, is the last two Nike SB redesigns we cut open and reviewed were kind of a joke. The Jordan 4 SB was like a $225 boat, barely built any different at all from a regular pair. And the Air Max 95, it looks really cool, but it fell apart on me after doing 100 kickflips. So when Nike says they rebuilt the AF1 for skateboarders, I don't believe them yet. So we bought both. We got a crispy pair of regular AF1s at $115. We have the SB version at $120, $5 more. Crazy how much prices have gone up the last 5 to 10 years. And when I cut these in half, I found 3 big changes that Nike made, and one of them is something I genuinely didn't expect from Nike in 2026. There's also something they did to the air unit that you cannot see from the outside at all, so I'll show you. So a little AF1 lore first. Before we get into it, if you've been hiding under a rock for the last 45 years, you need to understand the cultural weight of this shoe, because that's what makes this redesign so risky. So the Air Force One is the default skin of the real world. It is the NPC shoe. It's the go-to any mall, look down, 60% of the people there are wearing these. It's the shoe that you put on when you want to look cool without actually thinking and making a fashion choice. And there are 3 kinds of AF1 wearers. The status symbol, which is crispy white. You'll see grown men walking like they have a back injury to avoid creasing the toe. It's not a shoe, it's a high maintenance pet. Then you have the cooked pair, which has been through 3 music festivals and a mud pit. The soles are yellow, the leather is peeling, real main character energy. And then you have the villain, which is the all black AF1s. And these are red flags. If a red flag was a shoe, it's a black AF1. That person isn't here to hang out. They're here to start a problem. They're here to smoke some rocks and do crimes. So that's the shoe that Nike is messing with. So the changes better be worth it. For the first ranking, the fit and flick. So I'm normally a 9.5 US, and both of these I have to size up to a 10. The last run's really long and pointy. So in the 9.5, my toes were way too squished across the instep of both of them. In the 10, they're still a little bit squished, but it also feels way too long. So if I went up to a 10.5, I'd probably have plenty of room here, but I'd be getting into clown territory with the length. And they both fit pretty similar. I would say get your normal AF1 size. Just know it runs a hair long in the toe.
I literally bought every single leather insole on the market. Nobody does a nice thick veg tan leather. I think every single insole I found that looked like veg tan leather wasn't actually veg tan, it was a combination tan. And above that, nobody does a rough out leather where the grains protect on the inside. And on top of that, this is 2 millimeters thick of really nice veg tan, where every other leather insole on the market is like 0.8 millimeters. Because the whole goal with this insole was to essentially take what I love so much about heritage boots, that leather on the inside, and be able to put that in any kind of shoe, or be able to put a really high quality heritage insole inside of your heritage boots that aren't cheap and gonna smell and gonna wear out over time. And I'm shocked nobody did this before us, because we've been working on this for 3 years.
So change number 1 is the thing that everybody complains about. If you've ever owned a pair of AF1s, you know the single most annoying thing about them is the leather creases instantly. You look at them wrong and they crease. And you wear them for a week and the toe looks like a crumpled napkin. And there's a specific reason for that, and nobody really talks about it. It's because the AF1 leather is PU coated. Nike pretty much has to do this to get that crispy white look. The coating hides all the flaws and keeps billions of pairs looking uniform. So if you have the leather, this is the coating on top of it. It bends, 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 and then this just starts to bubble up, and that's what makes the crease. It's not the leather failing, it's the coating on top failing. So what did Nike do on the SB? They dropped the coated leather entirely and went to suede. And this is a big deal because suede is grippier, more abrasion resistant, and it creases way less severely because there's no coating to separate from. So suede is my personal favorite material for a skate shoe, and the fact that Nike committed to it instead of trying to preserve the crispy white aesthetic tells me they actually cared about performance here. And what's interesting is the shape of the toe is actually pretty different as well. You can see that the AF1 is like a wall. It's like a flat wall that goes up, and the SB one is like kind of curves back and pushes back farther, which gives you way more room to flick, because flicking in a skateboard with something that's just like straight up is going to be a lot harder than something that's nice and smooth like this. So here's where it gets really interesting, is the AF1 leather is 1.6 millimeters all over, but the SB leather uses 2 different kinds of suede. They have a hairier, slightly softer one on the toe and heel, but a stiffer suede on the sides. But the toe is only 1.1 millimeters thick. That's really thin. That's much thinner than you want to see, especially on a skate shoe. But you check the sides, sides, they're 1.5 millimeters, which is where you want to be on a skate shoe, but they're also backed by a really thick stiffener. But neither shoe, unfortunately, has any double layered panels. Like I'd like to see this go all the way down and then have the bumper cover it so you get double redundancy, especially when you're skating. It's the most destructive thing you can do to your shoes. But the SB does have one thing going for it though, which is a rolled edge right here instead of having just the raw edge right there. So it's tucked under and sewed down. So you won't catch that raw edge on a board and start delaminating, which happens all the time on pretty much every single skate shoe. But the most important test we can do for a skate shoe is the abrasion test. We have a Martindale abrasion test. It simulates real skate wear. It rubs a sample of the shoe against grip tape. It's against mob grip tape, the grippiest grip. Really eat through that shoe and tell you how much it's actually going to last. And my bar for decent is anything above 1,000 strokes is going to be good. Anything below 1,000 strokes probably needs some more work. So I put it on for a very long time, and the Air Force One surprisingly fails at 2,408 strokes, which is pretty good. That's like one of our better ones. But how did the SB compare to that? It came in at 2,063 strokes, which is still quite impressive for Nike. This might be the best Nike leather we've ever seen on a shoe. And to be honest, straight out the box, I did 100 kickflips in the SB, and they held up really well. It's barely even worn right there, which is good. Some shoes you do 100 kickflips in, and stuff's already coming off, everything's separating, the outsole's going through, and that's pretty good because my ankle is still healing, and it probably took me like 250 to 350 attempts to land 100 kickflips. But here's the thing, the upper is the change you can see, and there are two more changes that Nike made that are way bigger, and one of them is completely invisible from the outside. So I want to show you the cushion first because the numbers on that one don't really add up, and I can't figure out why without cutting it open. So change number 2 is the cushion. The Air Force One is legendary for one reason. It was the first shoe ever to have an air unit in the midsole. So it was made for basketball in 1982, and it was super revolutionary at the time. But here's the problem with that for skating. In skateboarding, you need to feel your board. You also need the shoe to absorb up to 5 times your body weight on impacts over and over and over again. And those two things kind of fight each other, board feel and having to protect from impacts. The original AF1 was designed to win the impact fight at the cost of having any feel below your feet, because you don't really need that for basketball too much, which is probably why no one really skates in regular AF1s. So on foot, the difference is very obvious. The regular AF1 sits way up higher. There's way more cushion under your toes. The SB feels way lower, and it feels like there's way less cushion under your toes, if any at all. I can actually feel the sides of the shoe underneath my arch on the medial side, which means there's way less material between my foot and the actual ground. So if we pull out the insoles, I don't think the AF1s is supposed to be actually removed because it's glued in there pretty good. But the SB insole is way denser, and it doesn't have any wings. And here's the weird part. It's missing the signature Nike SB Zoom Air Packet on the heel. Almost every Nike SB shoe has the Zoom Packet, and this one doesn't, or at least it doesn't look like it does. So where is all of this cushioning really coming from? Because I can see the pink midsole foam sticking out of the outsole, which means there's something in there, but I can't see what. And this is the thing that's bugging me. It's like they can put all this stuff on the outside to make it look like there's stuff in here, but you don't actually know until you cut it in half. So if I had to rank the board feel ranking, just to give you some context for skating, if 1 is barefoot and 10 is you can't feel anything, I'd say the SB is probably around a 7.5. You don't get a ton of feeling, but it's not the worst. And the regular is probably around a 9, where you really don't feel anything underneath your foot. So the pre-cut cushion ranking, I'd say the normal AF1 is probably an 80 and the SB is probably a 65. So if we go to change number 3, which is the outsole, my biggest problem with the Jordan 4 SB that they released is the outsole was so slippery I could barely grip the board. But you know, I'm not the greatest skater in the world, but it was still pretty tough to like wiggle around in. So that's what I'm going to be watching for on this new AF1. Because you can see the AF1 and SB outsoles look almost identical. Same pivot circles, same classic pattern, but on the SB, the tread pattern is pulled closer together, which should mean better board grip than this one. Should, not does. And if we measure how hard they are, they're both about 75 Shore, which is pretty hard for a skate shoe. Softer means grippier but less durable. Harder means stiffer and more durable, but much more slippery. And I can confirm that after pushing for about 10 miles and doing my 100 kickflips, the SB is very slippery. It's not the worst I've ever worn. It's not the slipperiest shoe I've ever put on, but I'm definitely a little gun shy about slippery shoes since I broke my ankle in a pair of Superstars, which were also pretty slippery. So if you're buying these to skate in, they'll probably last longer than most skate shoes outsoles because of that really hard rubber, but you're trading that longevity for grip. So just kind of know what you're getting. They're a little bit slippery, kind of hard to get used to. Some people might like that, some people might hate it. For me, I like maybe a little grippier shoe. So if I do the pre-cut durability ranking, I'd probably put both around a 70. I think they're both gonna be pretty dang durable. But that's everything you can see from the outside, so let's cut these things in half and see what the real changes are, or if Nike's hiding anything else on the inside.
These are all of our handmade wallets that we sew right here in the shop, cut out right here in the shop, and we don't use sewing machines. We do it the old school way with the saddle sewing technique that they use to make saddles instead of the sewing machine. It's one piece of thread, 2 needles, and weaving in and out of the thread all the various colors from tan, light brown, medium brown, dark brown, and black. More importantly, the various wallets. So check these all out below.
All right, so we got them cut both in half. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe. Feel free to send me any money. I do accept tips. It's very helpful. But that's the best way to support us. It's the free things you can do when we're cutting $1,000 worth of shoes apart every single week, every single year. We've spent this much money on shoes so far, which is insane. We always get comments that are like, oh, I think there's a typo. I don't think you've actually spent $150,000 on shoes. Wrong, we have. So support us, please. Anywho, let's start with the normal AF1. Now, the SBs. So for the regular AF1, you got the full-length foam and air unit midsole right there. It's exactly what's been inside for the last 44 years, but if you go to the SB, it is built completely differently. So they cut the foam midsole in half. It's only in the heel, and the air unit is still there, but they moved it to sit on top of the foam instead of burying it inside. And up front where the foam used to be, they've replaced it with this like egg crate right here, so you still get a little separation, a tiny bit of squish. Emphasis on tiny, that's not much of an egg crate there. It's still gonna feel thicker than if there's no egg crate. That's kind of why all the numbers felt a little weird. So you still get the zoom-like impact protection in the heel from the air unit, but the forefoot is basically sitting on thin egg crate directly on the outsole. So that's why I could feel the ground a lot more than in this one, and it's very noticeable. It's also a lot lower to the ground. Like you can see how much lower you're sitting. It's almost like a ½ inch lower. Sorry, Short Kings, you're gonna lose a little bit of that height boost. So out of all of the recent SB like redesigns of old models, this one definitely seems like the most sensible and the most like actually tuned for skating. The Jordan 4 at $225 is clearly made for hype. It's also a huge boat. I don't think everyone would like skating in it. It's cool that they did it, but that's really what it's for. Cool. Like $225 for this kind of skate shoe is absolutely the top of the top line, and you don't get any like crazy intrinsic value from it. The Air Max 95 is cool and it is tuned for skating, but it just fell apart on me, which is kind of a bummer. It's also like not really meant for skating. In my opinion, it's meant for show. They just tweaked a couple things to make it skateable. But this one actually took everything about the AF1 and actually retooled it for skating, and it's not $200. Like it's $120. This is cheaper than most of your dunks you're gonna be able to get. It's like if you took a Nike dunk and made it stiffer and a little thicker version of it. It's like the Nike Dunk's beefier brother who's been in the gym. So for the final rankings of these shoes, for the fit and flick, I'd say both of them come in about a 7.5 for the pointiness. The durability, I'd honestly say both of them come in about 70 for durability. This one is pretty durable. I'm actually blown away at the durability of this. This might be the second most durable Nike shoe we've ever seen behind that Ninja 4. And for the cushion, I'd say the AF1 comes in probably about an 80. There's a ton of cushion here. It feels cushiony. And the SB probably is living at a 65. Like you definitely still get that cushion here, but then it goes to nothing right there. And you can feel it under your foot. Like these are definitely way less cushiony than this, but they're definitely gonna be more cushiony than a dunk. There's more between your foot and the ground than a dunk. And finally, value. Are these actually worth your hard-earned money? So regular AF1, if 0 is a terrible deal and 100 is a great deal, I'd say regular AF1 is about a 50. You get decent cushion, but that coated leather is just not it for me. I don't like that coated leather at all. But honestly, there's a reason it's stuck around for so long. It's not a bad value. It is getting more expensive with inflation, etc., but not a bad value. But the SB, for skating specifically, I'd say this is a pretty solid skate shoe, honestly. I'd give this a 65 for value. It's more durable overall. It's slightly expensive, but Nike actually put thought into this one. It's the most skate ready. Like this is what they should have been doing from day one with all of these collabs. If I was starting Nike skate team, I would have put the shoe out like first. It's the AF1. You can't go wrong with it because it's already been tested by billions of people. So if you're going for pure comfort, the regular AF1 is definitely still the move. If you're skating, the SB is absolutely the move. Just know the outsole is pretty slippery and the toe leather is a little bit thin. But if you want durability and longevity, longevity, the SB is definitely the better built shoe, in my opinion. You just lose some of the cushion that the AF1 is famous for. Honestly, the shape of AF1s has never fit my foot perfectly, and I probably wouldn't skate these daily, but this is the first Nike SB redesign I've cut open where I've walked away thinking like, oh yeah, they actually did the thing they said they're going to do, and it works exactly how it's supposed to, and it's pretty good. It's like one of the better Nike shoes we've cut apart. So shout out to Nike, which is weird to hear me say that. Anyways, comment your thoughts below. Like, what do you think about these shoes? Are you gonna skate them? Is this good or bad in your opinion? Have you skated them? How are they holding up? Comment section's a really good resource to like round out these reviews, because some people are like, oh, I actually skated this, and I usually skate this, and my foot fit like this, etc. and so forth. So drop all those comments below, and let me know what else we should cut, and I'm gonna keep on chopping shoes, so keep on commenting what you want to see. So peace.